Hi, my name is Kimper Nowicki and I am sharing this video with you to basically add my voice to the conversation as it relates to our existing political race for the sheriff's office in Elbert County. I believe that it is imperative that those of us who have personal experiences with the existing department and culture speak out and share what we know so that everyone in this county has as much information as possible to make the most educated decision that each person can make. And so the intent is not to sway your vote for any one particular person in this race. I will not share who I'm voting for. I don't think that's important here. What is important is that my family's experience is shared, and the facts that I know personally as they relate to the existing Elbert County Sheriff's Department are known. This is a painful story. It's a long story, and so I apologize in advance if I stumble, if I become short of breath, if I become emotional and cry, or all of the above. What's important about my family's story and what sets it apart from others that you may have already heard is that it involves a minor. And I know that in a lot of the cases it's easy to disregard stories of other adults. You know, we're big people, we should be able to handle ourselves. That may or may not be the case. I believe that every citizen in this county deserves the same treatment regardless of age or any other identifying characteristic. But our children deserve more, and our children legally need to be protected, but they deserve more from our law enforcement, and for those in power of affording protection, our children deserve the very best. And so I want to share this story with you to let you know that that has not been the case in my personal experience, and it can only make me believe that there are others out here in this county that have experienced similar things with regard to their children. And so really the sole purpose of my video is to hopefully prevent another family, another child, from experiencing the utter hell that my family has gone through at the hands of Elbert School and the Elbert County Sheriff's Department. And I mention Elbert School because they work in tandem in my story. As it applies to this current sheriff's race, Troy McCoy was the SRO at Elbert School for years, I think for our entire career at Elbert School. And so I had several dealings with him in that position. He was also part of the department when our family was involved with the Sheriff's Department, and so I know that he has knowledge. And while, again, I'm going to state that my video is not an anti-Troy McCoy video, my story is an anti-existing Sheriff's Department culture video, because I am of the belief that the culture that has been created over the past 8+ years is wrong, and it is unhealthy, and it should not be allowed to continue. Now, if we don't elect someone who is not part of the current problem, if we don't elect someone who is not currently part of the problem, how can we ever expect to bring about change? And change is desperately needed. And I hope that my video, after hearing what I have to tell you, at least gives you pause to consider, if you haven't already, that perhaps we need some change in our Sheriff's Department. And it starts at the top. I'm going to try my best not to name names, and I'm going to try my best to keep the focus on the parts of this long story that directly involve the Sheriff's Department. I have had personal experiences with Troy McCroy as the SRO, and they were not positive ones. And it had nothing to do with anything else other than everyday interactions. So I'll just tell you that. My experiences with the Sheriff's Department do not directly relate to Troy McCroy. So again, this has nothing really to do with him. It's a culture change that is needed. And here is why. In 2 separate incidents, 2 separate years, my son was accused by Elbert School of doing some pretty terrible things that were not true. And in both incidents, he was arrested. I will not going to focus on the first one because it didn't bring about the most negative experiences. I'm going to just skirt over the first traumatic experience and fast forward to 2016, the most recent one. Because of these accusations at school and an ensuing witch hunt, which did involve the Elbert County deputies, and those are my words, a witch hunt, my son was arrested. And this is the big part of the story, because this is the part that I think truly highlights the culture of our existing Sheriff's Department and what cannot, absolutely cannot be allowed to continue. I had 2 deputies show up at my door one afternoon on a school day, banging on my door, very startling. I had known that I had previously picked up my son from school because there was a 2-day, like I said, a witch hunt at school, basically trying to build a case against my son to back up the accusations that they ultimately charged him with. So I picked him up from school because it was a very unhealthy atmosphere there, and I would not allow my son to be intimidated and basically scared at his own school. So I brought him home early that day. So after school, I had these 2 deputies show up at my door demanding that I bring him out. And I was ultimately, by the tone of the voice and the aggression in the words they spoke to me, and the manner which they approached me with, was extremely unsettling. Trying to be cooperative and appeasing, I asked them, can I help you? No, we need your son out here now. Okay, can I ask what this is about? You may not. You know exactly what this is about. So the more that they insisted that I already knew why they were there, the more I insisted I did not, and I would really need them to explain this to me. And the more I asked questions, the more incensed one of the 2 deputies in particular became. This is a very tall deputy. This is a very overpowering deputy. You would have thought that I had committed a crime, the way that he was approaching me at my front door on my property, without a warrant, without any explanation about why they were there. So I said, okay, if I grab my son, are you just going to talk to him? Yes, was his answer. Yes. Okay. Trying to be cooperative, brought him out. They asked him to step out of the door. Now my son is in socks, and this was an evening where we were expecting a blizzard to blow in. And so being cooperative, he said, yes, sir. He stepped out of the door, and they proceeded to handcuff him and tell him that that they were going to, I don't know if they even told him he was under arrest. At that point, I'm in a panic because I'm like, wait a second, what happened to this discussion that you said you were going to have that didn't happen? Ma'am, step away. Basically, we don't have to answer your questions. We're taking your son. You know exactly what's happening here. And I was like, I have no clue where's your paperwork? Why are you here? They had no warrant. They had no reason. They would not give me a reason why they were there. They insisted I already knew what was going on. They were taking my son now, walking him to their car, and now I'm losing it. I'm panicked. I'm thinking, what are you doing? Why are you here? I don't understand. Why won't you talk to me? The more that I asked, again, the more aggressive this deputy became. They did not read my son his rights in my presence. My son claims they never read him his rights. They put him in the back of the car, on the passenger side, and I'm at the driver's side talking to the aggressive deputy, again, pressing him to give me any information. You know, I need to know. He told me over and over, you need to stop talking. I don't have to answer your questions. And at one point I said, okay, then I'm just gonna follow you. If you're not gonna tell me where you're going, I'm just gonna follow you. At which point he told me I was not allowed to follow their car, which in hindsight seems completely absurd on public roads. They're just, basically I feel like they're kidnapping my son because they're giving me nothing. At this point I didn't even have a business card. I didn't even know their names. They're telling me I can't follow them. I'm freaking out, and I'm thinking, okay, you just took my son in a short sleeve shirt and socks, and we're about to have a blizzard. You're not telling me why you're taking him. You're not telling me where you're taking him. You're giving him no respect. You didn't even read him his rights, yet he's in handcuffs in the back of your car. You're yelling at me like I'm a criminal. And so I tried to calm him, and I said, just stop. Just please stop. Can I at least, before you leave, can I grab his shoes and a jacket? He's in socks. And this guy was so annoyed, and like I was wasting his time. But he agreed. He was like, fine. So in a panic, I ran in the house. I grabbed shoes and a jacket. I ran it out to my son. I handed it to him, and I told him I loved him. I told him I don't know what's going on. And I said, you remember, you are innocent until you are proven guilty. Oh, the deputies lost it. At that point, step away. You may not talk to this person anymore. You know, I'm his mom. He was 16 years old at the time, a minor, probably $120 in socks and a t-shirt, armed with a mechanical pencil. And this is how we're being treated. You would have thought that I had just slit someone's throat in a public square. I mean, this was ridiculous. So I went back to the driver and I said, how do I know what's going on? Who is going to tell me? And he said that someone would contact me later. Someone. And I was like, who and how? You haven't even asked my name or my phone number. Can I give you my phone number? I had to force him to take my phone number, to contact me, because he never asked my name. He never asked for my ID, proof that I was even the parent or the guardian of this kid that he just kidnapped from my house. They had nothing. They didn't care. They gave me nothing. They asked nothing of me. They just wanted to take my son. They didn't care what the weather was going to be like. Nothing. So I forced him to write down my phone number, and they left. And I was panicked. So I ran in the house, and I asked someone to come and drive me, my dad to come and drive me. I called my husband. We got to meet there. I don't know where they're taking him. I mean, you can imagine the chaos and the fear and the anger at the way that I had just been treated and the way that my son had just been treated. So we're driving to the sheriff's department. I find out later that they did not go directly to the sheriff's department. They took my son back to the school and parked him out front. Now, here's a really important thing I want to share with you. This accusation that they accused my son of making a threat against the school, this threat was so grave that they put the school on lockdown. They shut down school. It was a Thursday. They stopped school Friday, and then it was going to be spring break. It was that grave that they took all those precautions because there was this danger at large in the community. Yet, they did not deem it necessary to cancel the sports awards banquet that was happening that night. Okay? And again, the sheriff's department is now involved as advisors because the school is now the victim. And they're getting all of the support and advice and guidance from the sheriff's department as the victim. And I think that's very important to note, that it was important to be dramatic and shut school and do all this, yet sports awards, no, let's continue to have our party. So they drove my son back to school, parked him right out front of the front doors in the sheriff's car while everyone was coming into the school to this banquet. Respect of a minor, protection of privacy rights, any of that? I don't think so. They were there for maybe 15, 20 minutes. Doing what? I have no idea. We went to the sheriff's department. They wouldn't tell us anything. They would not come out and talk to us. They would not acknowledge that my son was there. They would not tell us why he was there. We still had no reason for why he was there. The only person that would talk to us was a bail bondsman who had just happened to be in the lobby, and he was kind of giving us the information that he knew about what might be happening from his perspective and his experiences. That was it. With no information, we left because it was closing. Turns out they kept my son there for 8 hours. Now, mind you, Elbert County does not have a juvenile facility at the Sheriff's Department. 8 hours. He was never allowed parental, what am I trying to say? We were not allowed to be with him. He was not allowed to have an attorney there. He claims he was never read his rights. So everything that they did, charging him, transporting him, was done without an adult guardian present for 8 hours. We waited as the blizzard rolled in. We waited at home in a panic. You can probably imagine, not knowing. We didn't know where he was. We didn't know that he was still there for 8 hours. At 1:30 in the morning, we received a phone call from the Juvenile Detention Center in Aurora, letting us know, a courtesy call, that they had just received him. And they asked, did I have any questions? Did I have any concerns? And I was like, yeah, I'm extremely concerned. He was taken from my home at 4:30. I have no idea where he's been. I don't know if he has had anything to drink. I don't know if he's had anything to eat. I don't know what he's wearing. I had to force them to take a jacket and shoes. I don't know if they were even given to him. The person on the other end of the line was floored. She couldn't believe that what I was telling her. Obviously, to me, that means that's not normal protocol when dealing with a minor. All she could tell me, and at that time, she couldn't even tell me. She didn't even know why he was here. 8 hours later, they didn't know why he was here. I had no paperwork. She told me that later that morning, maybe by 5:30, we would know if and for how much he would be able to be bailed out. So again, we stayed up the rest of the night. We spent that time trying desperately to find a bail bondsman to meet us down there to bail him out. Not one person would meet us down there because of the weather. That's how bad the weather was that night. That Elbert County Sheriff deputy had not 1 ounce of concern about taking my son in socks and a t-shirt with the blizzard looming. A blizzard so bad that not one bail bondsman was willing to get out into it and meet us down there. So we made the trip alone, and we bailed him out all ourselves. And that is the first time that we were given any documentation to explain why my son was arrested and taken from my house and why he ended up down there in their facility. The first time. 5:30, 6:30 the next morning. The school, under the sheriff's guidance and assistance filling out the paperwork, the correct paperwork, placed an immediate protection order against my son, my husband, and me. A protection order, which means we are not allowed to go anywhere near the school within 300 feet for an undetermined amount of time, because we posed a threat to the public. Why? Now, what I failed to tell you before is a little bit of my background. We moved here in 2007. We enrolled my 2 kids in Elbert School in 2008, and by that spring semester, I had signed up to be part of the Booster Club because I wanted to be involved in my kids' education and school experience, and it seemed like a really quaint, sweet little school. I proceeded to be a very active member of the Booster Club for the next 6 years. And if you know anything about Elbert School, the Booster Club basically does everything. There's no PTO, there's no PSTO, there's nothing. It is the Booster Club. And so when I say I was active, I was in and out of that school on a regular basis. Some people thought I worked there. That was the norm for the Booster Club. And now I pose a imminent threat to the school and everyone in there. Me. I sell $5 jewelry. I coach soccer. I'm a booster club member. Me. You know, that's kind of the level of ridiculousness. But all you got to do is make an accusation. Elbert County said, yep, that's fine. And here's how you go about doing it. And so we had protection orders. And so I had to pull out my daughter from school, my younger daughter, because I couldn't drive her there, and I would not. And so we were out of that school. My son was expelled, and they ultimately, over the spring break, the school worked with the sheriff's department and the district attorney, and they brought 5 bogus charges against my son. One for a threat he didn't make. A second one for a drawing, a hand drawing of a hand displaying a middle finger. Yes, my son is an artist. There's drawings everywhere. Remember, he was armed with a mechanical pencil when he was arrested. So to find a drawing of anything, he draws body parts like it's going out of style because he is attention to detail. He's very detail oriented, and so he draws eyeballs over and over and over. So seeing a hand with a middle finger really doesn't mean anything to me. I've seen him a million times. Yet this became a misdemeanor. It was a harassment charge because somehow between the school and the sheriff's department, they determined that that warranted a direct threat towards the school administrators. What? Yes. Another charge was some stupid stuff about interrupting school. Is that a misdemeanor, really? That intent to interrupt the school day? I need to tell you that this threat that he was accused of making was an opinion statement he made in an anonymous survey he was forced to take. So the school asked him, solicited him for his opinions about the school, and he provided them. I wouldn't care if. That's a statement. That's an opinion. But in this case, it was a threat. He was also brought up on a charge for violating a protection order that didn't exist. Now, please tell me how the Elbert County Sheriff's Department can file all that paperwork about a protection order that does not exist. How does that happen? Had it existed in the past? Yes, in the past it had existed for that previous incident I didn't explain. But when that case was basically kicked out, that protection order was null and void. How did they miss that? How did they miss it so much that they actually brought up another charge based on it? Incompetence? You can decide. Remember, we're talking about a minor here. Now, unfortunately, the system is no longer innocent until proven guilty. The system is you are guilty if accused until you prove yourself innocent. And so the disgusting thing is that we spent an entire summer living as criminals, the entire family, based on false accusations made by the school, supported by the sheriff's department. Remember, I told you this happened right before spring break. Well, when spring break resumed, I don't know, maybe some of you might remember this. You would have thought we had a Columbine incident happen. They had double security, law enforcement all over that school and the surrounding areas to bring these poor kids back to spring break after this big threat that had happened a week prior. The big threat that wasn't enough to stop the sports awards banquet, but still was a really, really big threat. They brought in grief counselors to the school. They started the resume of school with an all-school assembly in which the school superintendent thanked everybody for their assistance in stopping this incident and saving many lives, was the quote that was relayed to me. The sheriff's department was in full force in those actions. the incompetence, the unnecessary drama, what I think are illegal actions in that entire arrest proceeding is part of a culture. It's part of a culture that exists, that has been perpetuated, and that will continue if we elect the same people to just take different offices. Because it is now my understanding that Troy McCoy has admitted that he will appoint Shane Heap as his undersheriff should he be elected sheriff. Well, hey, why not? Let's just shuffle it all around and keep the status quo. If you're all about the status quo, then I guess that is your vote. But what I'm trying to explain to you is that there are so many things that are going wrong with this existing culture of our sheriff's department. If you've got any kind of a clear conscience, you can't allow it to continue. You cannot bring change without bringing change. And I know that if I vote one way for the existing people, the existing culture, I know what I'm going to get. I've experienced that, and I will not tolerate that. I can't. If I vote for the newcomer, I may not know exactly what I'm going to get, but I know what I'm not going to get. And I'm willing to take that gamble. The question is, are you? Are you willing to risk one more family, one more child of our community to be subjected to what my son was subjected to and what my family was subjected to? Let me fast forward and just let you know that we were so adamant about our son being innocent that we forced his case to go to court. We spent an entire summer of hell, like I said, living as a convicted family. We went through, my son had a probation officer, regular drug tests. There were no drugs involved, but he had to be subjected to drug tests, random drug tests. We had individual counseling. We had family counseling. We missed work. We had a terrible time. My daughter was affected. We had the most negative stigma following us in this little small county. It was disgusting because the rumor mills run rampant, but my family was not allowed to talk. We were silenced by the sheriff's department. We were not allowed to talk. But everyone else was talking. We pressed this case to go to court. It was supposed to go to court on September 2nd. On September 1st at 6 p.m., we finally got the call from our attorney that every single last charge had been dropped by the district attorney. Every single one. We knew it would happen. But they waited until the night before to finally let it go, and in a very subtle and roundabout way admit that they had nothing, that there was no way that any of their charges can stand up in court. And the first two had been dropped within the first week. The violation and the harassment, it was just ridiculous. But the last three they were hanging on to, and the night before court they finally dropped every single one of them. So that's the part of the story that Elbert School and the Sheriff's Department will never own up to. They lost their case. They had nothing. Every single charge was dropped. Did we ever get an apology from either one of those parties? No. Did we ever get reimbursed for any of the expenses that we had to go through? No. Did we even get any shred of accountability statement from any of them that anything had gone wrong, that they shouldn't have let it gone on so far, that they had really not handled it in the best way, considering this was a minor? No. The funny thing is that every turn we made, every attorney, we had state representatives, we had police personnel, law enforcement, every single person within the state and outside of the state, every time they heard our story, one, their minds were blown, and two, they were like, and are you pursuing this? Because this is a slam dunk case. There's so many things they did wrong, the Sheriff's Department. So many things that they handled incorrectly. You're going to sue them, right? Not one attorney would take this case. Not one. Nobody wants to touch Elbert County. You know why? I heard over and over and over. Elbert County is the most corrupt county in the state. That's pretty sad to hear over and over and over from people you don't even know. Elbert County is the most corrupt county in the state, is the opinion of outsiders. That's sick. You don't think we need to change? That doesn't convince you? I've basically scraped the top of this story, but I hope that I've shared enough detail to make your stomach turn, to make you realize that the fake political agendas have no merit. The real life experiences of the citizens of this county are where the facts lie, and really what should be driving your decision one way or the other. I'm not going to persuade you to vote for any one person. I'm going to ask you to consider voting against the existing culture. We need change. We cannot afford to have our citizens and our children treated the way they have been. And so many things just swept under the rug. Oh, hush, hush, hush. We don't want to talk about that. We're not going to admit that. Our kids deserve better. We should not drive these streets in fear of what might happen should we get pulled over for a legitimate or non-legitimate reason. We should be proud. We should feel safe. We should not doubt the integrity and the honesty of our own sheriff's department. I do, based on my own personal experiences. And I don't want to live that way anymore. So I ask you just to consider, I know I've taken up a huge amount of your time, and I appreciate your time. I appreciate you hearing my son's story. He deserves for the facts to be finally aired out, and it has taken me this long to be brave enough to revisit it all. I didn't even scrape the top, as I told you. It's a very painful story, but it needs to be shared because I would be sick to my stomach if I heard that we allowed this to continue and more families were subjected to such things at the hands of our current sheriff's department and culture. Let's bring about change, people. If we don't, nothing will change. I don't want that. Have a blessed night. Thank you for your time, and God bless this county. Good night.